Hello friends and welcome to That Pedal Show. This is the first in a series of 3, maybe 4 videos that sort of somewhat off-piste, won't go out on a Friday, so this is extra content. And it's the document of, well, let's face it, a middle-aged man crawling inside his own head, some might say up his own bottom, in the pursuit of rig bliss. It's the kind of thing we normally do in private because we don't want the world to see how bad things have become. But I'm going to commit it to video anyway and share it with you in an act of solidarity because you are not alone. And I hope that it serves as a reminder to us all that actually playing the guitar more and thinking less is just better for everybody on the planet. So why do it at all then? Well, it's time to change the rig up. For most of the gigs I did last year, I found myself only being able to take 1 amp and a small pedal board. Juxtapose that with running this insane 2 amp wet dry rig with 2 boards. The two worlds don't really marry, even though that stuff does sound epic and it does get used from time to time, so I need to address that a bit. Secondly, and outside of my brain, there are actually 2 real things happening in 2025, 2 real world projects that contain real music. One is I am finally committing some stuff to recording and I'll release something. Secondly, the band I played in when I was a teenager, which was quite the thing at the time and we were all really great mates and it was just amazing, has decided to reform because that's what you do in your 50s. So I kind of want whatever we end up with to be able to cover the basic elements of those 2 projects. Let's pull the hammer on the pinball machine of problemettes. Let's blast off into a sonic voyage of discovery. And inevitably, we'll take a giant curveball right into ghoulies. So rewind then to when I thought 2 amps and 2 pedal boards was a really good idea. I'll explain how it all comes together, reflect on a couple of band rehearsals. Let's go. So this is day 1. Try and do this quickly. The general idea is to have all the necessities on the main board, which will be in front of where I stand. And then try and create some sort of wet signal chain that includes the Hughes and Kettner Rotosphere and a reverb unit that sits off the board so I don't have to have it on the main board. So what's in front of me can be quite small. Dan and I recently did a challenge video where we sort of tried to create a compact wet dry rig. This is what I put together and this really does have all the essentials of what I need, which is a few stages of gain, harmonic tremolo and delay. Now, if I can do that and add this into the wet amps, it might not be the same pedals, but that basic principle, that is a win. Now, that needs to go on there. That's a prototype of a new pedal that's coming out that incorporates a boost and an octafuzz, which is one of my gain stages. That's something else. Do I use G3 Atom? Do I need it? And what delay pedal will I use? Always and forever, my main amp is going to be this. It's my favourite amp I've ever used. 2-Rock Classic Reverb signature, and I flipping love it. That is on a 1x12 cab with an EV, right? Now, that is a 10-inch barefaced cab upsetter with a 1x10 EV in it, which is really interesting. We'll hear that in a bit. Maybe I can power that using this as the second amp. But the issue with stage space is you can usually have quite a bit of vertical space, but horizontal space is quite difficult. So having 2 cabs side by side, even when it's tiny like that, can sometimes be a bit of an issue. So the other option, I absolutely adore these cabs, made by Paul Goff at Zilla quite a number of years ago now. They've got WGS12L speakers in and they're the same, and I like that from a sort of aesthetic point of view. And of course the space is vertical, so actually you can have 2 nice big 1x12 cabs. Big 1x12 cabs is an oxymoron, isn't it? But in a sort of single width space. So these are all things to test, and there's going to be the trade-off between sound and space, between aesthetic and sound, and all of those things that upset us. So yeah, let's get to it. That's the middle and both ends of it so far. given that there's 2 amps and it's going to be wet dry, basically, G3 takes care of all of that signal routing. Parallel, stereo, whatever you want. Further, it's got these, not on the small one, on the big one, it does have the functionality. It has remote switching. So, for example, if I put the Rotosphere and the reverb back in a box near the other amp, so they don't have to be in this stage pedal board, because they don't need to be, this can be remotely switched on and off and fast and slow speed, I believe, using the remote switching capability of this. I just need to run a TRS cable from this to this. There's no signal, it's just switching. So everything I want is pretty much on there. First gain stage, which is the biggest gain stage. There's no fuzz on here at the moment, but the great thing about organising your pedals like this is if you want to swap that out for a fuzz, it's really easy. If you want to swap that out for a different pedal, it's really easy. So your gain stages can come and go, but the main functionality stays the same. You don't have to tear the board to pieces every time. Delay, I've been using this for years. I love the sound of it. It makes absolute sense to stick with that. And Harmonious Monk, can't live without it. So that's where we'll go. We'll wire that up. Power and audio can all sit in there. And the good news about the power is I've got 2 pedals that take high current. So 9 volt, higher current than usual. I don't know what it takes, probably 300, 400 milliamps, something like that. Same with this, because it's actually got a tube in it. Requires higher current. These ones, all straight, low current draw analog, so they can come off of one fairly low current thing. I'll put a diagram up if you like, rather than go through it in gruesome detail. Actually, a diagram would be very helpful at this point. One other important consideration is that this board will work into just 1 amp. So you've seen the diagram. One of the things we really love about wet dry is you can just remove the dry amp, as it were. Now that means in my case I am going to lose the rotary speaker as well, probably, if that's how it ends up. But just by removing the dry amp, you can just use the wet output on this board, drive 1 amp and get all the sounds on this board. Won't be wet dry, but that's okay because you're only using 1 amp for the situations that that requires. Now, the problem with that is that then too big for a tiny gig? Probably. You see the dilemma. Okay, this is a significant moment of sorts. I've actually wired it all up. I wasn't going to bother, I was just going to wire a couple of things just to go and test. But once I got going, I thought, oh, sod it, I'll keep going. So hopefully, if I plug this in the back, everything will fire up. So there's power to everything. I'll show you that in a sec. Yep, everything's got power, that's good. It's a rat's nest under there, as all my boards tend to be. Honestly, I kind of don't see the point in doing it neatly when you're always just going to rip it all apart all the time. I mean, if I do settle on this, maybe it'll be more neat, but at least everything's easy to get to in there and completely fixable. All the hard things are, you know, velcroed on, so they can't go anywhere. I've put the power supply actually in the board, which I stopped doing when I had a tube pedal on, because I found that tube pedals, if they're right above that, cause a bit of noise. But what I've done is I put that end, and I've put the tube pedal all the way down this end, so we'll see if it's not too noisy. Anyway, first job is to just try and test those cabs out, so let's go and do that. New day, new challenge. Now we're on to the remote board. Why a remote board? Because the main board, which I've just plugged in and tested, you can hear that, hopefully, is big enough. I don't want it to be any bigger. And that's all the stuff that I would use regularly. I don't know. Is it overkill? I don't know. Maybe it's overkill for you. I want the rotary speaker as kind of a separate deal. There it is. And I want to use that one. I don't want to use a digital simulation for all the reasons you can watch in our What's the Problem with Rotary Speaker simulator pedals. I want to use that one. It's the best sounding one that I found. But it is a pain in the butt, right? Because it's massive. And it requires a really annoying power supply. I have discovered that by... on this Schmidt Array 250, check this out. It's supposed to go in like this, right? So these clips on the back here go in there, and then it pushes down, which I won't do because it'll make a clunk. And that's how that works. So you can flip it up, get all your stuff in there for a really compact board. What I've discovered, which will probably make Martin Smith very unhappy, sorry Martin, is that you can actually pivot it on the front and it will click in at the back. It's a bit awkward, but what it means is it's literally the only pedal board I possess that will fit this. It won't fit on the upper or lower deck of any of my other Schmidt arrays, because either the case won't close or it's too big for the top deck. But it will, believe it or not, if you balance that on there like that, you can push down and it sits on the top of the Rotosphere, which is fine because it's built like a tank. That's not going anywhere, and it holds it in there. And I've carted it about like that and it's fine. One of the problems with the H&K Rotosphere is that it requires a very, very unusual power supply. A, in that it's AC. Dan doesn't touch AC with power supply stuff, everything's DC. B, it's a strange voltage and current, so powering it off a normal power supply, gig rig power supply anyway, isn't going to work. So I've jimmied this old extension lead with an IEC adapter on it, which can plug into the IEC connection on here. So this is a pain because it's got two power supplies. I am actually wondering whether this all comes out and goes in its own separate little box, make a little box up that's got the power all in it, all on a four-way, so that it's only one plug, because at the moment it's going to be two plugs and that's a pain. Anyway, to test the concept, I've got it rigged up with Velcro, look, on all the key parts, so that when it's in there, it won't move. A little trick Dan showed me many moons ago. You put a piece of paper in. We may as well use the X-ray of my hand. If you put a piece of paper in there, it'll stop the Velcro from sticking to the bottom surface. So you can get it in there. You can get it on that edge, which I'm just going to have to put this phone down to do. You can almost see it, can't you? There you go. You can almost see it. So you can get it stuck to the edge that you want it stuck on. Just push that in so it pops in and connects the Velcro. I think that's done that. Yeah. Pull the paper out. Then you can stick your other thing down so you don't have the lateral movement of it kind of going backwards and forwards. Spring reverbs tend to be terribly noisy, and I rather suspect I'm going to get a noise problem because this is going to be above it. So I'll put it on this side to be as far away as possible, but I still think it's going to be noisy. Anyway, onwards. Top tier. So underneath there, it's got a distributor for the power in and a Time Lord, which is needed to power that. As I say, that's a pain because I need a separate power supply for this and one for this, which means two plugs, and that annoys me. So I'm going to fix that in time. That just sits in there like that and will clamp down. Am I going to get any ground, loop, hum, or noise because I'm using yet more power? Now that should all be isolated anyway, but I guess we'll see that in the round, whether I need to attach another humdinger in order to isolate it because it's outside of G3. I guess that remains to be seen. But as it is, there it is, nice and neat. Sits in its own little box. I appreciate this does seem quite complex, doesn't it? Proof of concept o'clock. I have plugged it all in. I have checked that it all works, and I've set the amps up very briefly. By the end of this first session, we're going to decide if the Tube Screamer and the Balladeer both need to stay. And Simon, I really am sorry if I'm not supposed to show anyone this, but just to underline, it's a prototype of something that he may or may not release. So I hope I haven't caused you any trouble, Simon. Apologies. That's job number one. Job number two, at the moment, the 2-Rock is on the 2-Rock cab and the Victory V40 is on the little barefaced 110. next to the Victory and the barefaced is the satellite board with the rotary speaker and the extra reverb on it. So before we proceed any further, I'll play the Victory on its own, then I'll play the 2-rock on its own and you'll hear the difference. All good, just with the boost. If you're tired of hearing blues licks, sorry, that's what I play. That's what you're going to hear. Just checking all my input levels because I couldn't see much registering from the Victory. Anyway, right, job number 1. Let's have a quick listen to the Balladeer and the Tube Screamer next to one another. Immediately, the Tube Screamer's got that mid-range thing, right? It just has that mid-range thing. So I'll come on to hearing the Balladeer a bit more in a minute with humbuckers for the specific job I want it to do. But as for it replacing the Tube Screamer completely, I don't think so. The mid's in a different place. Actually, it does have a more mid-boosted function. Let's try that. Wow. With the switch over to the left there on the Balladeer, it's actually pretty close. Bit more gain going in the Balladeer, but it's pretty close. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. But of course, what's probably more interesting is hitting the Balladeer with the Tube Screamer. Yeah, I don't want to get rid of that. I don't want to get rid of that. That was job number 1. Job number 2. Let's see if the satellite board works. So, I'm not going to explain the signal chain. I'll just put a diagram up. For example, my wet effects here, delay and harmonious monk, will only hit the 2 rock. I'm digging that. I'm digging that. Just want to say sorry if the camera's hunting for focus. I'm really sorry. I have to look at it. Hopefully it knows that I'm the subject. Okay, we know that that works. So that's delay and monk into the 2 rock. Now what I've also got is the Rotosphere into just the Victory and that little cab. I am getting myself tied up here. Killer. The Hughes and Kettner, when I turn it off, the reverb clanged. The Hughes and Kettner is a little bit noisy, but that's okay, I can deal with that. And I'm going to put a remote switch so that I can switch it, not a switch, a remote cable, so I can switch it from G3. That is possible. Although I'm going to have to think about my foot switches anyway. Maybe I can use the hidden preset. Put the tuner on the hidden preset in 1 and use 8. Trouble is I need 2. Anyway, right, let's swap these cabs out. You've had a listen to those. We'll swap the cabs out. Nothing else will change. Let's see what difference using those 2 cabs in a vertically arranged arrangement makes compared to having them side by side as they are currently, and obviously different dimensions. Can I click with my bad hand? Blimey, after considerable arsing about, you can see the problem so far. One of the reasons for having the 2 vertically stacked cabs, sonics aside, we'll hear what they sound like and I'll get an impression of that from where I'm sat. Obviously one of them's much higher, which could aid with audibility for me when I'm stood on stage, and therefore maybe means it doesn't have to be quite so loud banging out on the floor. But then all of a sudden everything's very high and it looks kind of imposing, and I shouldn't worry about what other people think, but sometimes you do. And then of course then you've got to figure out what to do with the victory head, the other board. Let's take that in the round. So let's, hopefully none of the settings have changed. I'll turn the victory head on and hopefully it will work into the bottom cab. That seems a good deal quieter than it was into the 110 EV, which I guess shouldn't be that surprising given that it's a highly efficient, powerful speaker. It seems so much quieter. I'm just checking out I haven't got it turned in some low power mode or whatever. Okay, that's that one. Let's try the... that's interesting. So, sorry if I look a bit awkward doing this. It's a bit weird standing up and sitting down. Okay, that is really interesting. I kind of prefer it because the speaker's closer to my ear. And in so doing, kind of makes it louder to me personally, which could be a great benefit given what's happened with stage volumes. Means I can get it louder in my ear, but I'm not missing any wet. Not missing any wet. Just see how the gain stages work, in particular the Balladeer there, given that I tend to think of it more as a Dumbly style thing, and for that reason I kind of like the idea of it in my head more with humbuckers. Whether that's actually true or not, I don't know. So let's just have a listen to this guitar. Sold. To the man with the orange tape on his fingers. Sold. Done. That's it. That's it. That's it. I was expecting the Victory maybe not to keep up. It seems to have. The gain stages. Oh my life. The Strat maybe sounds a little bit not quite on compared to this. This guitar is like, oh my God. I hope it translates. I hope it translates. I can't remember the last time I kind of just started playing and kept playing. It doesn't happen. And okay, I just got to make it work now. I just got to make it work practically. Alistair.
Buongiorno.
Paul. Simon. This is 4 of 7, and these 4 people have been in the same room together for 30 years.
Yeah.
Is it 30 years?
30 or more. 35 even. Well, certainly 30, yeah. Yeah.
First rehearsal over with the Core 4. Like an idiot, I didn't take any video of us playing. I'm going to do some tomorrow because we've got a rehearsal with a full band tomorrow, or at least 6 of the 7. And my thoughts at this point are the rig is just total overkill. The 2 big cabs, the 2 rock, which is now in a, getting ready to go to the rehearsal tomorrow. Big pedal board and everything, total overkill. Tone wise, really like the fat overdrive sounds, but there's not enough twang, not enough snap, not enough strat in the clean tones. So that's something I'm going to work on. We had a blast. We genuinely haven't played together for 30 years, and there were songs we played. We knew all the stops. We knew some of the weird little breakdowns and stuff we put in. And we started playing things that literally no one has played in 30 years and remembered it. which is nuts. Anyway, we had a great day. It was quite emotional, actually. And yeah, rig, total overkill. It's been 3 days since the rehearsals at the weekend with the band, and by the by, we went to do James Dean Bradfield yesterday, Manic Street Preachers in Wales. Had a great day with James, and it's always very motivating when you hang around with someone like him. Not that there's anyone like him, but you know what I mean. And you come back feeling good. This morning I woke up, went for a walk with the dog, and mine turns back to the board, which I know is just... I'm desperately trying not to be completely navel-gazing about it, but it is something I want to sort out. So, rehearsals at the weekend. We did Saturday in here, just to warm up with the core, guitar, bass and drums, the singer. And then we had the horns in on Sunday. I'll cut a bit in. I'm not going to cut too much in. You know, 6 guys haven't played together in 30 years, and it was, for that, it was good. But it was otherwise a little bit rough around the edges, and we know where the work needs to be done. However, the board, as I mentioned after the Saturday rehearsal, is just total overkill. It's with some reluctance that I admit that I just don't need all this stuff. The stuff I actually used, I use this a lot. A, for some Stevie Ray Vaughan songs that we do, so you need it for that. I want it for that. And also there's some sort of rhythm comping that I do, which sounds kind of Hammondy in parts, so that definitely works. I use this a great deal. I decided I didn't really need or want this. My tone has become very mid-thick, part of the navel-gazing of the last however long. This doesn't really have a place in that band because there's no octafuzz requirement. And I didn't really use this very much. So I'm thinking about a delay. God, madness. I use delay so much in other bands and other projects, just not required in that band, which was really weird. Monk to taste, but I'm wondering if I can radically simplify and address this question of my sound was pretty mid-heavy, that sort of dumbly thing that I've come to love. I was missing a lot of sweet high-end treble, even with the 2-rock. So I think it might be time just to go back to the drawing board and have a bit of a reality check, which I guess is good. As Caleb from Clarkson's Farm might say, let me just warm this one up. Oh my God, I've probably got a red mark on my head. Oh my God. So many of you out there will be saying, I could have told you that, mate. Could have told you that would never work, or it was too much. And to be fair, I probably could have told myself, but you got to go there to come back. But then this happened. I'm buying a Marshall.
Yeah,
I'm buying a Marshall.
it's the sound.
I'm buying a Marshall.
Well, you've got a Marshall.
I'm buying a bigger Marshall. I think we better pick that up next episode. Bye for now.